Balitang napapanahon, wasto at makabuluhan. Eksklusibo, hatid sa inyo ng Balitang PIA. Tuwing Miyerkules, 1:00 hanggang 3:00 ng hapon. Live na mapapanood at mapapakinggan dito lang sa official Facebook page ng Malolos City Information Office. Huwag kalimutang i-follow ang page para sa karagdagang updates.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, His Excellency Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Bago dahil sa ito ay kinakailangan tayo na magtulong-tulong na paon na rin ang mahal na.
We may now be seated to formally begin our program. May we call on the Foreign Correspondents Association of the Philippines, FOCA President, Ms. Girly Linao, to deliver her welcome remarks.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. Welcome to the FOCAP 50th Anniversary Presidential Forum. The last time we held a presidential forum was almost a decade ago in 2015. So we're very excited to revive this journalistic tradition this year when FOCAP is celebrating its 50th founding anniversary. This annual event began when the late President Ferdinand Edralin Marcos met with the association on June 3, 1977. That was 3 years after FOCAP was established in 1974. A copy of the then President's speech can still be found in the official Gazette today. We thank you, Mr. President, for accepting our invitation and upholding this important tradition of engaging with FOCAP members. At the time of disinformation and misinformation, the ability of the press, including the foreign media, to directly hear from the highest official of the land and to ask questions on various topics, especially foreign policy and national governance, is crucial in keeping the public and the world informed. We hope that this will be the start of an annual event during your presidency, sir. Again, thank you and good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Linao. And now may we call on retired Chief Justice and Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin to introduce our guest of honor and keynote speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, His Excellency Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Thank you very much, Secretary Luc Bersamin, for your introduction. Please be seated. The Excellencies of the Diplomatic Corps, the Foreign Correspondents Association, or FOCAP, President Girly Linao, officers and members of Foreign Correspondents Association of the Philippines, my fellow workers in government who are here with us this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, good afternoon. This luncheon is I would say, very profound moment for me on a personal and on an official level. Your first guest to this luncheon was my father 50 years ago. 5 decades later, I stand here and I address you as president to celebrate the golden anniversary and carry on the legacy of this important media tradition. As president, I will seek this forum not only to explain our policies, but to renew my vow to what I deeply believe in, that the president's role is to defend press freedom and not lead in destroying it or demeaning its practitioners. It is my duty for which I ask no special favor, but only fairness, which every citizen, be he the leader of the land or a tiller of the soil, deserves from the fourth estate. Unlike many of my predecessors, I do not seek collaboration, for that implies a surrender of your independence. I am of the opinion that national interest is better served by a press that is critical, rather than a press that is cooperative. It must have the untrammeled freedom to do its work, not just to arm the citizenry with the truth, but also to deepen discernment in this age of mass disinformation. In fact, this has been the hallmark of FOCAP's relationship with the presidency and the government for this last half-century. Not compromising your principles has allowed you to live up to the public trust in a manner that is fair but nuanced, balanced but critical. The principal role of the press is not to applaud those who govern, but you hold us accountable without holding back and giving praise to those who deserve it and providing criticism for those who deserve that. Along with the stance is our collective goal of protecting the welfare and lives of journalists. This administration remains committed to bringing justice to the members of the press who were slain in the line of their noble duty. Rest assured that this government, through the Presidential Task Force on Media Security, is always on top of ensuring a safe environment for media practitioners in the country. It is in this spirit that I come here today, to render a candid report and exchange ideas on matters that affect the country. I stated at the start of my administration that we would not yield 1 inch of territory to any foreign power. In recent years, the Philippines has been at the receiving end of illegal, aggressive, and irresponsible actions in the West Philippine Sea. It is crucial that the media, including the members of FOCAP, to continue to expose these actions that not only threaten the peace and stability of the region, but also undermine the rules-based order that has underpinned global development and prosperity over the previous century. We must do everything to defend our sovereignty, exercise our sovereign rights and jurisdiction, and uphold our national interests. We also continue to seek and strengthen mutual partnerships with like-minded neighbors, friends, and allies to promote peace and ensure stability in the region. Having said that, the rule of law and global consensus are our greatest tools in securing our maritime territory. So while our nation faces its own trials, we remain deeply concerned about the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and despite the geographical distance, our country is not spared from the impacts and shocks that the conflict provides as we continue to experience food and energy insecurity, along with the challenges in the global supply chain and continuing rising inflation. We continue to hope for a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace in the region for the safety and security of affected families, some of whom are Filipino. Allow me also to reiterate that the International Criminal Court has no jurisdiction over the Philippines, as we remain to have a working judicial system and law enforcement mechanisms. This administration's concept of the anti-illegal drugs campaign has also been transformed, as we are focusing more on prevention and rehabilitation. Under the banner of Bagong Pilipinas, we are steadfast in adhering to our shared mission of advancing the welfare of Filipinos and nurturing a truly free and safe environment for all journalists. Once again, congratulations, Happy Golden Jubilee FOCAP. Thank you very much. Mabuhay kayong lahat. Maraming salamat. Mabuhay ang bagong Pilipinas.
Thank you, Mr. President. May we request the President to kindly remain on stage for the open forum? And may we call on once again the FOCAP President, Ms. Gurley Linao, to join the President on stage.
Okay. We are going to open the floor to questions, Mr. President, Gurley. Hi. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Hi again, Mr. President, Gurley. We are going to open the floor now to questions from FOCAP members. May I call on Mr. Ken Sasaki of Kero News. Ken?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. It's great honor to meet you in DC last week and also here in Manila. I wish to ask you about the historical trilateral summit held in DC. And the joint vision statement announced the establishment of trilateral maritime dialogue to cope with collective response and coordination, to enhance coordination. What is this dialogue meant for? Is it to respond to the illegal and dangerous actions in the West Philippine Sea? And when and where and by who the first meeting will be held? Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, I think it bears explanation. First of all, the trilateral agreement, as I was explaining when I was in Washington, D.C., was that it is not a response to the immediate occurrences, incidents that are happening to us, with us, around us. But really a continuing development and evolution of the relationship that we have always had with the United States and with Japan. And in truth, it formalizes what the US and Japan and Philippines have already been doing together. Now, of course, security and defense are a great part of that trilateral agreement. But an even greater part of the trilateral agreement are the economic cooperations that are being fostered by the trilateral agreement. We went during the summit with Prime Minister Kishida and President Joe Biden. We went into quite a bit of detail as to what those areas are: semiconductors, renewables, the transfer of technology, green minerals. All of these things were spoken about. And that plays an essential part of that trilateral agreement. So it is not directed at anyone or against anyone. It is merely a strengthening or a formalization and institutionalizing, I suppose, the relationship of the United States, Japan, and the Philippines. Now, the security and defense part of the trilateral agreement, of course, speaks of interoperability, speaks of joint exercises, which seem to be perfectly, which we have been doing, again, we have already been doing before, but we have now put it down on paper in a formal document as to what we plan and how that partnership will continue to evolve as time goes on. So when it comes to the security and defense aspect, I'm sorry, of the South China Sea, of the West Philippine Sea, really what the aim of the trilateral agreement, but it's not only the United States, Japan, and the Philippines, it's very many other countries all around the region, and even as far as EU, as far as North America, is really to maintain the freedom of navigation along the South China Sea, simply because it is a recognition that the world right now is still having to recover from the pandemic economy, from the shocks that came from the the war in Ukraine, and then now the Middle East. We just had a big escalation with Iran attacking Israel. So these are the elements that we are having to deal with. These are the shocks that are completely beyond our control. So we have to maintain commerce, we have to maintain the peace, we have to maintain stability, and that's what really the point of the trilateral agreement is so that we provide for ourselves in the region, in the Indo-Pacific region, an area of peace and stability, so that we can all find our way in this new global economy, post-pandemic economy. And I think that's really the point of that trilateral agreement.
Follow-up question, Ken?
Thank you, President. Also, this statement mentioned, as you mentioned, that about the HADR exercises, trilateral ones, and that can be integrated in the maritime activities, such as Balikatan 2025. Does it mean that the Japanese self-defense force can be a regular member of this Balikatan exercise? And how and when the first HADR exercise would take place? Thank you.
Well, Balikatan is traditionally between the Philippines, which together with the Philippines and the U.S. It is part of our mutual defense treaty that we hold these exercises every year. Now, with the inclusion of Japan into some of these exercises that we've been doing, not only Balikatan but others, I don't see any reason why Japan should not be part of those exercises in the future. And that again is, I think, is a good move for us to make, simply because it will make it easier for us to work together and to coordinate together, and again, so that we can do the most, focus where the problems are, maximize the resources that we have, so that we can maintain the peace and stability and freedom of navigation, and adhere totally and completely and constantly to the rule of international law, and specifically the UNCLOS.
So the
Okay, thank you.
Balikatan can be trilateral next year.
I cannot hear. I'm sorry?
So the Balikatan can be trilateral exercise next year.
Well, we'll see about that. You're not the first person to mention it, and I think that may be something that we can study. So we'll let us just do this Balikatan now. The Balikatan exercise that we are coming into now are the largest exercises that we have ever had, the most complex, and it touches on areas that we have never really had to deal with before, specifically cyber security, command and control, all of these things that we did not that previously we had not included in our coordinative efforts for Balikatan. So let's get through that, and then after that we'll look again how the trilateral agreement has allowed us to more options to include Japan. And we'll see. And I for one have no objection to such an idea.
Thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you.
May we have Mr. Noriyuki Sakai of NHK, please?
Thank you for taking my questions,
Sure,
President.
of course.
So my question is regarding about the West Philippine Sea and also the mutual defense treaty. Despite a Yungin incident recently where some soldiers were injured, President, you said that there were no reason to invoke the mutual defense treaty. So under what conditions would it possibly be invoked?
I think Secretary Austin explained it very well. If any serviceman, Filipino serviceman, is killed by an attack from any foreign power, then that is time to invoke the Mutual Defense Treaty. I actually, when I spoke to him in Washington, I thanked him for making it very, very clear to everyone. And he did precisely that. He was asked the same question that we are all asked: when do you invoke the Mutual Defense Treaty? When does it kick into action? And he said that if a Filipino serviceman is killed because of an attack or an aggressive action by another foreign power.
I see. So just to follow up, so the treaty be invoked against also the patrol vessels or the maritime militias rather than the military?
Well, as long as they have actually caused casualties and it has killed the serviceman, then that whatever their designations are, whether they're merchant marine or Coast Guard or actual gray vessels or Navy vessels, it does not matter. That is an attack on the Philippines by a foreign power.
Thank you so much. The next question will be asked by Ms. Alison Jackson of the Agence France Presse.
Hello, Mr. President. Excuse me. Does the Philippines have a plan to give the U.S. military access to more Philippine bases as part of EDCA, such as building one on Batanes? And are you concerned that such a move could provoke even stronger actions? Sorry, could you hear me, sir?
I can, yes.
You can, okay. Let me just start again. Does the Philippines plan to
Yes.
give the U.S. military access
Let
to
me
more...
stop you right there. The answer to that is no. The Philippines has no plan to create any more bases or give access to any more bases. So, yes. So,
Okay.
but if there's anything else you'd like to ask, I'm happy
given
to.
that they've been granted access to 9 bases so far, are you concerned that this is part of this could be provoking the strong actions by China in the South China Sea, or do you actually consider these sites as protection in case of a conflict between the US and China?
No, I think that's turning the situation on its head. These are reactions to what has happened in the South China Sea, to the aggressive actions that we have had to deal with, the water cannoning, the lasers, the collision, the blocking of our bangka, our fishermen, the putting of barriers across Scarborough Shoal. This is a reaction to that. This did not cause that. That happened before we had EDCA.
And just to clarify, that's a categorical no to more EDCA bases?
No, definitely. No. The Philippines has no plans to open or to establish more EDCA bases.
As my follow-up question, are you concerned that a Donald Trump administration would not offer the same ironclad commitment to the Philippines that the Biden administration has repeatedly made as recently as last week? And what impact would that have on the Philippines' strategy of pushing back against Chinese actions in the South China Sea, such as publicizing incidents?
Well, I think it would be artful to say that we do not watch closely the political cycle that is ongoing in the United States. Because inevitably, if there is a change in government, if President Biden is reelected, then we have a fairly solid ground to base our positions on, because we have already spoken with him. But inevitably, if there is a change in government, then there will be changes in policy. We do not know what those are. But I believe that what we have agreed with the United States are beyond politics. And I think that since they almost rise to treaty agreements, those treaty agreements must be honored. And that, I think, puts us on good ground. But I will not deny that we look. Certainly, we examine who's going to be in charge. In case the former President Trump is reelected, what will be the changes that will affect us? It's hard to say. It's all speculation for now.
Thank you
sir.
so much.
Thank you.
May we have Ms. Raisa Robles of the South China Morning Post.
Good afternoon.
Sir. This is concerning the Arelma case involving ill-gotten wealth of your family of at least $40 million in bearer bonds invested by the Panamanian Corporation Arelma in Merrill Lynch in New York.
Okay.
The Philippine government petitioned to get it back, but you filed a petition in 2009 in New York, also later before the Supreme Court here, to stop it. According to the World Bank, it is still pending. Now that you are the president representing the Philippine government with the Solicitor General and the PCGG under you, which side will you represent, Mr. President? Will you fight yourself so that the Philippine government that you now represent can finally get it for the Filipino people?
You know, it's hard for me to answer. You clearly know more about the case than I do. I really haven't looked at it in years. And I would advise you to talk to the lawyers that are handling it, because I'm not being specious or anything like that. Matagal ko nang hindi narinig yung pangalan na Arelma. We were still in Hawaii when we were hearing that name. So we haven't really been attending to it. The previous cases, the cases that were filed post 1986, I have not touched. I have nothing. It would be highly improper for me to involve myself in that. Besides, I don't have the time to do it, so I leave it to the lawyers.
Follow-up question, please.
Yes, I'll wait.
Raisa.
Okay. The Philippine government is already compensating martial law human rights victims under your father's rule. Why have you resisted issuing an apology for atrocities committed during martial law under your father's rule? And will you continue doing so as the president?
Well, I don't think it is a duty for a president to be involved. That is a personal matter for the Marcos family.
But you are a member of the Marcos family.
Definitely, but it's more, my role as president is more important right now than my role as a member of the Marcos family. So I take that's my first priority.
So will you apologize as president of the Republic in behalf?
The president of the no, that seems highly a little contrived. No? Who is apologizing to whom now?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raisa. May we have Ms. Karen Lema of Reuters, please?
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Thank you once again for being with us today.
Thank you.
Mr. President, your government has been saying that this is related to the South China Sea, my question, particularly on oil and gas exploration. Your government has said that it was prepared to guarantee, and I quote, unimpeded and peaceful exploration of all natural resources within the EEZ and other areas where we have jurisdiction. May I ask, how does your government plan to accomplish that, and what will that entail?
That's a fairly sensitive question, because let me categorize those areas that are ripe or that we are looking at for exploration. There are those who are in non-conflict areas. That's what we defined, that's what we term them as now, the conflict areas and non-conflict areas. And as far as the Philippines is concerned, if those prospective reserves are within the EEZ, conflict area or otherwise, then any exploration should be conducted by the Philippines. So if that, however we choose to do it, if we choose to do it by ourselves, if we choose to do it in partnership with other corporations, or which we probably will be the case, because we don't have the capacity for that very large scale heavy engineering in terms of exploration. But how that's going to be done, because in our case, in the Philippines, it is really not a matter of choice. Let me take it back a couple of steps. In the Philippines, we are presently trying to shift our mix of power generation from fossil fuels away from fossil fuels towards renewables. Now, that doesn't happen in an instant. You do not flick a switch and you are suddenly all renewable. You have a transition period, which is turning out to be much more complicated than everyone thought. But anyway, in the Philippines, we have decided that LNG is going to be our transition fuel. And that is why it is imperative for the Philippines to now examine and to see, to guarantee the supply of LNG to our country so that we have sufficient power. Because it's not enough that we maintain the levels of power generation that we have now. Well, with all the plans that we have, essentially to industrialize the Philippines, it's essentially to enter into the digital space, all of these things require a great deal of power. And so it is important to the Philippines that we explore those reserves and see exactly what there are and how we go about exploiting them and bringing that gas supply to the Philippines. So we are doing our best. I think we will, of course, to keep it simple. I think the prevailing term these days is pick the low-hanging fruit. So the low-hanging fruit will be those reserves that are within our EEZ that are not in a conflict area. We'll attend to that first, and then we'll see what else that we can do. We need them all, though. We need them all. Even if we do well with the non-conflict areas reserves, we still have to look at all the others, whether they be in conflict areas or otherwise.
Follow up, please.
Just a follow-up, Mr.
Very
President.
quick.
Has progress been made on the oil and gas talks between the Philippines and China? Last year, if I'm not mistaken, both countries have agreed to resume oil and gas talks. So has progress been made? If yes, why? And if no, then why not?
Well, we always come up against the same argument, or between China and the Philippines, because when we say that we would like to explore, they insist that these areas are in Chinese territory, and therefore Chinese law must prevail. We, of course, do not accept that. We say this is Philippine territory, and therefore Philippine law should prevail. That's really where the sticking point is. Even before I came into office, that was already the situation we're in. I hear a great many optimistic reports that they're saying that we have agreed, we've come to an agreement, but I haven't really seen something that we can use to work forward. In other words, I don't really think we have a proper agreement, and it really comes down to that issue: which law will apply? And the reason that there is an argument is that China claims that these territories belong to China. We dispute that, and that's where the problem is.
Thank you
sir.
so much.
Thank you.
May we have Ms. Joanna Balearan of GG Press, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. I'm Joanna Balyaran from GG Press. Sir, my question is about Japan and the reciprocal access agreement. So, when will the Philippines and Japan sign the agreement? And can you please give us a time frame?
For
the RAA, sir.
For the
RAA, the reciprocal access agreement with Japan.
the reciprocal. Yeah, we're working on that. Yes, we are. Malapit na. Sorry, that will be coming soon. We spoke about it again with Prime Minister Kishida when I was in Washington. There aren't any real conflicts in principle. It's just a question of getting the language down and defining precisely how it's going to work, the logistical systems and how that's going to work. But it should not take very much longer. I think we're very close to completion on that.
Okay, sir. Just a follow-up.
Sure.
Filipino comfort women who are still seeking World War II justice and reparations are raising concerns about the RAA. How do you ensure that this agreement doesn't compromise the country's interest? And which country do you think should take custody of Japanese soldiers committing crime on Philippine soil?
I cannot see how the reciprocal agreement would affect any of that. It is entirely, it essentially talks about that Japan allows us to make ports of call in Japan and vice versa. How it will possibly affect the issue about comfort women and what allegations that are made against war criminals during the Second World War. I cannot see how it will bleed into that. I think it's quite distinct and discrete in its effect.
About the custody, sir.
About the
Custody.
of
The custody of erring Japanese servicemen on Philippine soil. Which country do you think should take custody of these Japanese servicemen in case RAA is approved?
Oh. It's not the same as a visiting forces agreement. That I think is that's not similar. The visiting we've had problems with that with the Americans, some American forces, as we all know. But that's not it's very, very different from what the reciprocal agreement will be with the Japanese. It's not going to be as if it's their base and the people their seamen will come down and will go into the city and go into. Well, I don't think that's a part of the agreement.
Thank you
sir.
so much. May we have Mara Cepeda of the Straits Times, please?
Hello, Mr. President.
Hello.
Sir, you already reiterated the position of the Philippines regarding the ICC.
Yes.
And so, sir, I raised the issue of the Philippines advocating for an international rules-based order. We're pushing for it when we are resisting Beijing's aggressive actions against the Philippines in the West Philippine Sea. But we are opting out of the Rome Statute when an adverse case has been lodged against us. So, sir, is the rules-based order only applicable to the Philippines when it's convenient for us?
What is the rule about the ICC? When do they adopt jurisdiction? They adopt jurisdiction in a country, or they have jurisdiction in a country when no judicial system is working, is functioning, no police no police force is functioning. In other words, that probably there is war. And none of these issues about war crimes and all of these are being attended to, simply because the administration, especially in the judiciary, especially in law enforcement, are not functioning. That is the reason why we are saying we are well within the rules. It is their rule. It is the rule of ICC that they come in when there is no judiciary. They come in when there is no police force. We have a judiciary. The Chief Justice, former Chief Justice, sitting right here. He will explain to you how healthy and robust and how active the judiciary is. The police force, I think, the same thing. So that is the reason. It is not. We are well within. We are well within international law when we take the position of not recognize the jurisdiction of ICC in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm. One follow-up, sir. So if the ICC issues an arrest warrant against former President Duterte, will the Philippine government hand him over?
Will we do what?
Will the Philippine government hand them over if the ICC
We don't
issues-
recognize the warrant that they will send to us.
So that's a no.
That's a no.
Thank you, sir.
Regine Cabato of the Washington Post, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Last week, you said that you were horrified at the prospect of a gentleman's agreement between former President Duterte and China.
Wouldn't you be?
Of course.
I think we all should, right?
Mm-hmm. And you said as well, Mr. President, that he should be held accountable. And since then, experts have said that any such agreement compromising PH sovereignty or territory would be a violation of not just the 2016 arbitral ruling, but Philippine law. So my question for you, sir, is how do you intend to hold former President Duterte accountable? Are there any actions being taken on this front?
Well, well, we still have to find out what it is all about. We cannot. I've tried to get in touch with former officials of the previous administration who could possibly have been involved in these discussions. And I have to tell you, I haven't gotten a straight answer out of anyone. Now, one party says, one person says, there's no agreement. Another person says, no, there was talk, but it's only status quo. No, there was, and another one will say, there was an agreement. So I'll go back to the three questions that I asked when this subject came up. Number one, the first question I want answered is, was there an agreement in fact? I think by now we can see that in fact there was a secret agreement. And what verifies that, and what I think for me at least convinces me that there was in fact a secret agreement, is the insistence of the Chinese government that there was a secret agreement. I do not think the Chinese government, I don't think Beijing will just make up and just out of nowhere say there was a secret agreement when there was no such thing. All right, so I think, to my mind, that is sufficient to me to prove to me that there was such an agreement. The second question I need answered is, what is contained in that secret agreement? What did we agree to? And why did we agree to that? What exactly is it that we compromised? Number two. Number three, and this is a critical question, why did you keep it secret? Why is there not one single document that contains that agreement? Why is there not one shred of evidence that can show that this agreement exists? Why, when the transition period between the previous administration to this administration, did no one mention a secret agreement? Why was it kept secret? These are very simple questions, but I'm finding a great deal of difficulty finding answers for them, because I hear one thing and another thing and another thing and another thing. It's all very maraming palusot. In other words, I don't know how to translate that in English, but maraming palusot.
Let me add a fourth question to that, Mr. President. What happens if you find out that there might be a legal liability on the part of former President
I cannot
Duterte?
see how there could possibly be a legal liability. There is no evidence of any agreement.
Okay.
Is there a document that is signed? I'd love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it does not affect the Philippines. And if there is, I have said that before, when this first came up a few months ago, and it turns out that the Chinese are insisting that there's a secret agreement, and perhaps there is. And I said, I don't know anything about the secret agreement. Should there be such a secret agreement, I am now rescinding it. So I've rescinded it, if indeed it exists. We are so far from getting to the truth, to the nub of the thing. We are so far away from it yet that it's very hard to give a reaction to those questions. Let's get those three questions answered. We've answered the first one. Now, what is contained in that secret agreement, and why was it kept secret? Those are the two questions left. Once we get those three answers, real answers, then we will know what to do.
Just a quick follow-up, Mr. President. You also said last week that you found the silence of Vice President Sara Duterte understandable, even as her family members have attacked you lately. And some analysts have even said that the family is out to undermine your policy. How would you describe your relationship with the Duterte family currently, and how would you reconcile your continued allyship with the Vice President and her family's vocal disdain for your policy?
It's complicated.
Okay. All right.
It's complicated. But if you ask about The one, of course, that I have the most contact with is Inday Sara. And how we were with each other during the campaign, after the election, it hasn't really changed. Yun na nga, that's what she always says. She said, "Oh, are you all right now? You're in the middle of all of this." And she says, "No, I'll just work. Don't worry about it. I'll just work and work and work and work." That's her attitude.
All right. Thank you so much for answering very candidly, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. At this point, may we request the President to please proceed downstage and grant us a group photo with all of our attendees. Likewise, may we request our attendees to gather at the center and join us with a group photo.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, for granting us a photo opportunity. That concludes our program. Thank you, Mr. President, for gracing the event today.
Panahon na ng pagbabago.